It's 5:03.
No, I got 5:03.
It's supposed to start after five.
After 5:01.
After 5. Okay, it's after 5:01. The meeting is in order.
Quorum, I'm sorry, roll call, Mayor Joseph,
Here?
Councilman Galvin, Vice Mayor Keys, Councilman Biedeme,
Yeah.
Councilman Desirme.
Yeah.
Mayor, we have a quorum to proceed with the budget hearing.
Okay, who's gonna do the Pledge of Allegiance?
Dirty.
Yes, it is. Okay, hand over heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for all, and we'll ask Mr. Manager to please lead us in invocation.
You stand or you sit? Oh. Depends.
In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, all praise is due to God, Lord of the worlds, Master of the day of judgment. Thee alone do we serve, and thee alone do we ask for help. Guide us on the straight path, Lord, and bless us with your favors. Govern us, put our government and our mayor and council, and please let this meeting go smoothly. Thank you.
Amen. Well, I'm not sure how we want to proceed. Whether are we going to have public hearings after we? Okay. Okay.
So tab A, for the record, I have to read the entire resolution in its entirety, so bear with me. A resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, adopting a tentative millage rate of 7.9336 mills for fiscal year 2015 through 2016, providing for an effective date and for all other purposes. Whereas the city of North Miami, Florida, city has considered an operating budget for fiscal year 2015 through 2016 in accordance with the provisions of section 200.065 Florida Statute 2014. And whereas the millage rate necessary to fund the city's operating budget for fiscal year 2015-2016 is 7.936 mils, which is 5.36% more than the rollback. That's what it says. 7.9336 mils. So operating budget for fiscal year 2015-2016 is 7.9336 mils, which is 5.36% more than the rollback rate of 7.5300 mils. And whereas, in accordance with section 200.0655 Florida Statutes 2014, as amended from time to time, a majority vote of the mayor and city council is required to adopt a rate of up 7.9336 mils. And whereas the mayor and city council find that the adoption of the proposed tentative millage rate for fiscal year 2015 through 2016 is in the best interest of the city. Now therefore be it duly resolved by mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida. Section 1, adoption of tentative millage rate. The mayor and city council of the city of North Miami hereby adopt 7.9336 mils as the tentative millage rate on assessed property value necessary to fund the city's fiscal year 2015 through 2016 operating budget. Section 2, effective date. This resolution shall become effective upon adoption, passed and adopted by a blank vote of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, this blank day of 2015. That is tab A.
Thank you very much. Does the staff have a presentation before we open it to the public?
Sure. I'd like to turn it over to Terry Henley, Assistant Budget Director, for a brief presentation on the budget, 2015-2016 budget.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Terry Henley. This is a brief presentation on the fiscal year 2015-16 proposed budget. There's 5 items we're going to talk about today. The first is the total budget for all funds, the general fund revenues, expenditures, enterprise, stormwater utility, and water and sewer utilities, then capital projects, and then I'll wrap up with the summary highlights for what we can take away from today. The proposed budget for this year is $136.3 million, and about 42% of this is the general fund. 39% is your enterprise fund, and the rest of the funds comprise about 19% of the total budget. And that includes some small project funds, as well as internal services, which is your fleet, and your risk management, workman's comp, housing rehabilitation, which is 1%, debt service, 1%, and transportation, which is 2%. And that's like your surtax and your gas tax. The general fund for FY16 is $53.4 million almost. And this represents a $3 million difference than last year's adopted budget, which was $60.1 million. Now, the variance or the difference can be contributed to a couple factors. One being the elimination of the red light camera program, and the use of reserve money to fund MOCA, as well as some $700,000 in capital projects voted last April. This slide is your revenues. Now, your revenues, the largest revenue source is taxes, which is 43%. Of the taxes, $16.2 million is your ad valorem. Non-revenues is $15 million, intergovernmental, $6.7 million. Charges for service, $4.3 million almost. License and permits, almost $4 million. Miscellaneous, $1.8. Fines and forfeits, $826,000, for a total of $57.4 million. This slide represents what our millage rate has looked like the last 10 years. And as you can see, it was as high as 8.5 back in 2006. This year, like the last 2 years, we're proposing to keep the same millage rate of 7.9336. Now this slide, if I could focus your attention on the middle column. This middle column is how we calculate the property taxes. We take the total values in North Miami, which is almost $2.4 billion. We apply our millage rate of 7.9336 against that, and we get about $18 million in total ad valorem property taxes. Now, out of this $18 million, we have some to divvy up to the CRA as well as the city. The CRA is going to get $1.8 million of this, and then the city will get the remainder, which is $16.2. Now, the proposed millage rate, even though it's the same as last year, it equates to $1.5 million in additional revenue over the rollback rate. So that means the general fund will get about $800,000, and the CRA $700,000. Now, the next 2 slides show how we're going to spend that additional $1.5 million. This $800,000 for the general fund, we have some proposed projects, community projects, and that includes improvements at North Bay Shore Park, citywide beautification of art of $60,000, housing rehabilitation $110,000, Keystone Community Center and Playground $100,000, Keystone Point Community Garden almost $3,000, the San Souci Tennis Court $65,000, Sasso Pool $200,000, Southgate, and this Sasso Pool of $200,000, this is to do the improvements on the interior of the facility. There's another $60,000 on the next slide from the CRA to do the exterior, which is going to address slum and blight. Also, we have about $11,000 for Southgate entrance keystones and utility box wraps combined. There's also 3 supplementals that are included in this $800,000. $120,000 of it is for constituent service aids, and also $50,000 for the study program and $20,000 for the Taste of North Miami. Now, even though this is not a CRA meeting, the CRA is getting $700,000 in addition over last year as a result of the 7.9336 millage rate. And this slide shows you $2.5 million in projects. It includes a P3, public-private partnership capital project to be determined this year at $500,000. A carryover funds. This is money that we have committed to finishing existing projects in fiscal year 15, which will be carried over. Then there's $300,000 to do downtown plaza. This is lighting and improvements. as well as Olander Park renovations at $250,000. Splash Pad and Pavilion Pepper Park, $250,000. Museum beautification at Mocha. This is to do landscaping and paint the building at $150,000. Greentail improvements, almost $140,000. Griffin Canine Facility, $125,500. A sewer model update at $120,000. A decorative crosswalk, $75,000. Sunkist Grove beautification, $75,000. Iron Manor fountain restoration, $70,000. Sasso Pool facade beautification. This is to do the exterior at $60,500. And $20,000 for Griffin Estates Park renovation. Continuing on general fund expenses, this slide shows general fund expenses with all departments. And you'll notice this year we're 5% less than last year. If I could focus your attention on the far right where you see the percent changes, I'll go through the few variations which are important to highlight. There was several positions moved around where code got 5 positions, and that was reorganization. So building gave them a couple positions, as well as public works. So you see variations in those budgets as a result. There was also MOCA. If I could focus your attention on that, you'll see that it's funded at about $1 million, and this is at its typical funding levels. Also, if you could look at non-departmental, you'll see that non-departmental is about a $1.8 million difference. It's less this year as a result of using some reserve funds for capital projects. And also what's built into this budget, there's $510,000 built in for staff COLA and merit increases. This has not been seen citywide since 2011. The next 2 slides are for your enterprise funds. This is stormwater. Stormwater is about $3 million. It includes 45% of the $3 million to operate, 6% for internal services, 15% for debt, 16% for reserves, and 18% for personnel. Your water and sewer budget, $48.7 million, 10% for personnel, 44% to operate it, 1% for internal services, and 14% for capital outlay, 31% for reserves and others to do future capital projects. This is a capital project slide, and it represents almost $12 million. 1.1 of this $12 million is to do general fund capital projects, and that includes $920,000 almost for vehicles, as well as computer switches and software, police laptops, and another project, $57,000 almost, to redo all the restrooms and City Hall. The next topic is transportation, and there are about 6 or 7 transportation projects, and this is your gas tax and half-cent sales tax at use. These projects, they do improvements to the roadway as well as the sidewalks, and there's traffic calming and traffic studies and installation of transit shelters as well. The bottom is your enterprise capital projects, and it includes vehicles for stormwater and water sewer, as well as a number of projects that are going to improve the plant, the water main, the water line, lift stations, and sanitary sewer rehab. This is the last slide of the presentation, and these 7 points will drive home what's important to get out of this. What's important is we have the same millage rate as the last 3 years. This millage rate is 7.9336. It represents a $1.5 million increase that we're going to get in additional revenue. It's $800,000 to the general fund, about $700,000 to the CRA, and those are to do capital projects which were outlined earlier. Other capital projects included $12 million almost in infrastructure citywide, and what's built into this budget is COLA and merit increases for staff. What's not in this budget is the red light camera program and its revenue. What's also important to note is that MOCA is funded at its traditional level of $1 million. Are there any questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
I have dozens and dozens of questions. How do we want to handle all this procedurally this evening?
Right
We-
now, we're discussing the millage rate. The budget is the second item that that I'm gonna read into the record. We're just on tab A now, which is the millage rate. So, just to let you know.
Fair enough. As long as we're gonna ask our questions,
After the public.
before, after, as long as we're gonna get to questions.
All right. Anything to add, Mr. Manager?
No.
Budget? Huh?
I
No?
think, apart from the presentation, I think the detailed budget was provided to each one of you, so with any further clarifications, I will, coordinate through our budget department.
Let me add, right now, we're getting ready to discuss adopting the tentative millage rate. Once we do set the tentative millage rate, it's important to know this number can be lowered at the next budget hearing. However, the number cannot be raised at the next budget hearing. So we are going to adopt it. Again, this is tentative. This is the first hearing. So we can lower the millage rate at the next meeting if that's what the body so chooses to do. But we will not be able to go higher than this millage rate once it is adopted. The recommended 7.9336. For the record, the 7.9336 is the same millage rate. Property values did go up, so it does, it does equate to a slight tax increase, but the millage rate is the same exact millage rate as it was last year. But again, just want to make sure that we're on the record saying that it can be lowered after this meeting at the next meeting, but it cannot be raised from this point. And the 7.9336 is what staff is recommending.
Mr. Sori, I don't know, maybe it's listed somewhere else, the funding that I requested for the North Miami Adult Program, I don't see it listed here. Is it somewhere else?
If you go to your detailed budget book, sir, to the non-departmental section.
Non-departmental,
Yes, it should be a tab.
what page is that? What?
I'm getting ready to tell you right now, sir.
Page 377.
Okay. 377 is the cover.
No,
Yeah,
it's, it is on
386.
Hmm?
page 386, sir. Page 386.
I got up to 384.
Are we discussing the budget or the millage rate? I'm confused. If we're millage rate, if this is the millage rate, I'm shutting up. If this is budget, let's have at it.
I just haven't seen the line, that's why. Okay. All right, so let's do the public hearing for the millage rate, and then we'll come back to this afterward.
Yeah, good point, yeah.
The millage rate item is open for public hearing for whoever wishes to be heard. Anyone from the public who wants to comment on the millage rate item? Public hearing is open. Public hearing is now closed.
Do I have a motion to approve tab A, the millage rate?
So moved?
Second.
Motion was made by Councilman Galvin to approve tab A, the millage rate. It was seconded by Councilman Bieneme, and I will do a roll call vote with your permission, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Councilman Bieneme,
Yes.
Councilman Desume,
Yes.
Mayor Joseph,
Yes.
Councilman Galvin,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Keys.
Yes.
Tab A has been approved, 5-0. Now, tab B. And for the record, I have to read it in its entirety, so please be patient. Tab B, an ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, adopting and approving the budget of the city of North Miami for the fiscal year commencing October 1st, 2015, and ending September 30th, 2016, authorizing the amount to be raised by taxation for the operation of the city for the 2015-2016 fiscal year, authorizing the expenditure of funds established by the budget, authorizing a return on investment transfer from the Water and Sewer Utility Fund to the general fund, authorizing the city manager to implement budget amendments, revenue and/or expenditure to appropriate or unappropriate funds as required during the fiscal year, and to amend the prior fiscal year budget to facilitate the year-end closing process, providing for repeal, severability, and an effective date. Whereas the budget of the city of North Miami City for the fiscal year commencing October 1st, 2015 and ending September 30th, 2016, attached hereto as Exhibit 1, was considered at public hearings held on September 21st, 2015 and September 30th, 2015, as required by Chapter 200 Florida statutes. And whereas the mayor and city council wish to approve and adopt the budget of the city for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2015 and ending September 30th, 2016, and to authorize that this amount be raised by taxation for the operation of the city for the 2015-2016 fiscal year. Now therefore being ordained by the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, that Section 1, budget approved and adopted, the budget of the city of North Miami for the 2015-2016 fiscal year, attached hereto as Exhibit 1, is hereby approved and adopted. Section 2, implemented budget amendments. The city manager is hereby authorized to implement budget amendments, revenues, and or expenditure by resolution to appropriate or unappropriate funds as required during the fiscal year and to amend the prior fiscal year budget by resolution to facilitate the year-end closing process. Section 3, expenditure of funds appropriated in the authorized budget. Funds appropriated to the various departments in the budget may be expanded by the directors of each department by and with the approval of the city manager in accordance with the provisions of the city charter and applicable ordinances. Expenditures of funds including but not limited to enterprise funds, internet service funds, and expendable trust funds under circumstances in which additional revenues are generated by user fees or charges to offset the cost of supplying the service to residents or other city departments shall not be limited by estimated appropriations, but rather by actual revenue. And to that extent, the actual revenue received shall be deemed to be appropriated. Section 4, return on investment of water and sewer fund assets. The budget includes a transfer from the water and sewer operation and maintenance funds to the general fund, representing the return on investment that taxpayers would receive if the utility were sold. The transfer for the 2015-2016 fiscal year is calculated at 6.5% of fixed assets as of September 30th, 2013. This transfer may be made annually but not exceed 7.5% of the utility's net fixed assets. Section 5, checks. All checks or city bank accounts shall be signed by any member of the city council and the finance director. Amount of taxes, the approximate amount of $18,986,506.00 shall be the amount of gross taxes to be raised by the operating ad valorem tax levied, authorized by a resolution of the mayor and city council. Section 7, authority of manager. The city manager is authorized and directed to execute and deliver any and all documents and instruments and to do the same and cause to be done any and all acts and things necessary of proper for carrying out the transactions contemplated by this ordinance. Section 8, repeal all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict or inconsistent are repealed. Section 9, severability. If any word, clause, phrase, sentence, paragraph, or section of this ordinance is held to be invalid by a court of competent jurisdiction, such declaration of invalidity shall not affect any other word, clause, phrase, sentence, paragraph, or section of this ordinance. Section 10, effective date. This ordinance shall become effective immediately upon passage on second reading. Passed and adopted by a blank vote of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami on first reading this blank day of September 2015. And just for the record, passed and adopted by a blank vote of the mayor and city council of the city council on second reading this blank day of September 2015. That is tab B.
Thank you. Any added info from staff? No, nothing? No? Public hearing is now open.
Good evening. Judy Brown, 1100 Northwest 128 Terrace. This afternoon, I'm coming to you as an advocate of the library board. Seeking information about the funding for books in the library. Why do I ask this question? Well, because in the past, the library has been the target of budget slashing. And I want to emphasize just how important the library is to our community. Also, I want to remind the mayor and council that our library provides a tremendous service to our residents. As evident of the visit to the library prior to its closing, the exit doors count was 28,000 visits to the library. And on an average month, exit door count runs between 23,000 and 26,000 visits a month. Therefore, I'm hoping that the library did get its funding requested for books, because it would be a shame to have spent $1.5 million on renovating the library and then turn around and not provide funding for books. What city does that? Finally, it is very important to fund the library because of the new digital resources we have, such as Mango, Hoopla, Overdrive, 3M, and Zito, without money. You cannot refund these digital programs without money. And I'm hoping that the library did get its piece of the budget pie. Now I have to put on another hat, and that's from Sunkist Grove. I'm coming as an advocate for the elderly at Sunkist Grove. In the past, our elderly residents have been overlooked and not been able to participate in the programs that the city have for the elderly. I'm asking this mayor and council to please consider the fact that our resident in Sunkist Grove, they are not, the services that are provided for the residents, somehow our elderly residents have not had that opportunity to participate in the different services for the elderly. So I'm asking the mayor and council to please open their hearts, because I do not want to attend another meeting and hear that a elderly woman was asked to leave the Sunkist Grove Center and was put out in the rain. That should not happen in our city. North Miami is much, much better than that. So I'm asking that you please give some money so we can have a bus service, we can get the word out, that if it's a bus at Sunkist Grove Center at certain times of day, to bring them over so they can participate in the services and then drop them back off, that would benefit, because sometimes they just sit home all day and their children or whomever is saying about the elderly, they have to work. So they were dropping them off at the park, but sometimes, that got messed up. So I don't want to belabor the point. I'm just bringing it to your attention, and I'm asking that some funds be provided for our elderly, because they too deserve to have a seat at the table. Thank you.
Good evening, Karen DeLeon, 1935 South Hibiscus Drive. I'm here as a representative of your Parks and Rec Commission. I know you don't hear from us often enough, but seeing this year's budget, we're excited to feel that we actually exist in the city, and you're hopefully going to hear more from us. What I'm really excited about is the amount that you're actually looking at improving in our Parks and Recreation, especially at Sasso Pool. That is our pride and joy and our only pool. I'm really excited to see that that is in the budget. We're looking forward to seeing beautiful improvements and seeing that pool operating all year long into the future. Other improvements across the board, they're on both sides of the city. They include community centers, et cetera. Excellent. A note that I would just like for you guys to put in the back of your mind, this year we have the Showmobile under repair. That's going to work for a little while longer. With the amount of times we use the Showmobile, the amount of times we give it away for free, our staff does an amazing job. Duct tape does an amazing job. But that is something into the future that we will be asking that you guys look into for the future. Thank you very much for your consideration of this year's Parks and Rec requests.
Good evening. My name is Nadine Goose. I'd like to, first of all, thank the mayor and the entire council. As a City of Miami resident, I would like to thank every one of you for making education the #1 priority in the community. We would like also to thank you guys again for the grant. It's very important. Education is very important in the community. Without education, there will not be, I mean, one day you guys gonna get hold and we will need replacements. So thanks again for the grant.
Kenneth Each, 776 Northeast 125th. I don't know if it's in the budget or not. Mr. Galvin, I gave you a list of the sidewalk on Emerald Drive that was busted up at about, I guess, about 15 different locations. And you're good enough to give it to the Public Works Department. And I hope it's a temporary fix. They went out there and they put asphalt on it. But it is dangerous, and that definitely has to be repaired. And also, on Arch Creek Road, the CRA years ago put in beautiful, beautiful trees. And Arch Creek has now become or has, I want to say for the last 15 years, been a drag strip. And a couple of cars have overturned. And they've taken out several trees over there, about 15 of these buttonwood trees. I'd like to see them replaced, so would my neighbors, obviously, if that could be done. And also on the embankment, if we can get some seagrass up there, instead of having the city come back out there and spend another $25,000 to eradicate the weeds, but something like a sea oats grass that would hold the embankment in place. I don't know how much it would be, $4,000 or $5,000. It wouldn't be much, but it would stop the repetitiveness of the crew coming out to get rid of the weeds and stuff like that. That's what we would request as the good citizens of Emerald Drive, Arch Creek, Northeast 16th Avenue. Thank you very much.
I guess public hearing is now closed. Mr. Story, you mentioned page 386 for the information that I asked.
Yes, sir.
Where's his project estimate? I don't see it.
On page
386.
386, non-departmental, this is the grants to other page.
Good.
If you see,
I see TikTok, First Gen,
if you go to
PAL.
second from the last one is listed,
Mhm.
adult continuing
Oh,
education.
okay, I see it. Okay, I got it. Number 820.
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. All right. Any other comments, questions?
Mr. Mayor, I just have a question about that 120,000 for the adult education center in North Miami. I remember 100,000. That's how much we put in the budget.
Yes, sir.
How much was spent?
Last year was, the year before, I believe we spent about $85,000
For
This-
14?
for FY13.
Okay.
This year, FY15, we had scaled it back to 50,000. I think right now to date, we're almost at 40,000. But we don't have all the invoices in yet, so probably by the time we reconcile, we probably be around $50,000. But I know they do take the money as, they know what they have and they know what they have to work with. We give them the budget ahead of time, so they know the amount. So I'm guessing people are turned away because they know they only have up to an amount of $50,000, and I think they spread it out. I'm not positive, but I think that's how it works.
Are we asking questions regarding the budget, or?
Yes, right now we're
Oh, okay,
discussing
we
the
are.
budget.
No, I know Councilman Galvin wanted to go, but we spoke about the senior program, and I think I told you regarding the gold program, the Parks and Rec used to have if it was possible from our conversation, I think I mentioned it to Terry as well, aside 125,000 to at least start with, at least a day or two a week, somewhere at one of our facilities for our seniors in the city.
Yes, sir. In the proposed budget that we have before you today, that is not funded at the time. If you're giving us direction to go back and seek and look for additional money to make some stuff, we would need to move around a couple things in this budget that we have forward to fund it.
Do we have anything left, or it's a balanced budget?
It's a completely balanced budget, sir.
Okay.
It's completely balanced. But I mean,
we gotta look
everybody
around.
has their questions. I don't know if it's gonna be adjustments to anything, and then we'll
So
come up
do we
with
just
the 125.
ask question randomly, or do you just call out, or how does how does the process usually
Typically,
differ?
we've had several different ways.
Okay.
I know several years ago, Councilman Galvin chose to go page by page. But
I'm
Chapter
going
by chapter.
page by page tonight.
So everybody does have
Yes.
their stuff. So if you have whatever you have that you want to actually go through, and we'll answer your questions as we go along.
The only question I have was Pepper Park, the playground. I know that was a concern, and I think I spoke to Terry last week, and I said, please see what we could do, because I have been getting some complaints, and I drove out there, so, and I don't see it in this budget.
Yes, and Councilman, we did fund everything that we could possibly fund. I know we have a lot of projects in here, a lot of parks improvements. That's
Which is
one
good.
that we didn't get to. But again, as we go through, if you see other areas that you might want to alter, we could adjust those accordingly.
Okay.
Next.
I'm not gonna be as long as you. I've got about 6 items. You want me to?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got about 60.
I haven't been doing my job. Okay, starting with, if you want to talk about that adult education, that was one of my questions. We've budgeted 100,000 for the last few years. We're only using between 50 and 60,000. I would like to take 40,000 off that and put that towards seniors. It's still for adults, but I'd like to use that towards the senior programs, which we don't have. I feel that over the last 3 years, it's been a good program. A lot of people who wanted to catch up on their high school GED were able to. I don't think we need to leave 40,000 sitting there. I'd like to see that go for the seniors. And speaking about, education, you just gave us this line item of $50,000 for a study program. I got a little backup, but I don't see who the 50,000 is going to be paid to. All of a sudden, we have an outsider getting 50,000. I don't have any information on it. I don't know what type of corporation. The background. This is something that we did with the CRA. We were giving $100,000, which helped 10 students. The little bit of background I have is 50,000 wound up helping 17 students. I would like the most bang for our buck. I really don't like seeing big chunks of money going to only a few people. So before I'm comfortable with a 50,000 line item called study program, I need to know what it is, please. I need to know who it's getting paid to, what the credentials are, and how many people are going to be helped.
Mr. Story, you want to make a presentation on that? Because you have the information. This is not a new project. This is a project that was presented to me. It's been in this city for how many years now?
The project was done back in 2008, 2009. I know then once we got to 2010 is when the CRA hit some rough times, and the program was actually eliminated at the time. The study program is a workforce and professional.
Which line,
Yes,
item
please,
are you referring to?
Yes, for clarification,
That's,
what are we
that's the
on?
study program, 386.
That's in your,
This is
Or
on-
the
that was in the presentation. In your
Okay.
presentation, the line item on the community projects that we did do. It's not, it's a supplemental request, that's why it's broken out. Yes, sir.
But I'm not seeing, okay, we did it, again, we spent 100,000 back when the CRA started for 10 people. This is a study of 2009, 28 students started, 11 dropped out. So we've got 17 people, I don't know what we paid for it, but I don't see who I don't even see who the money is going to. I don't see the corporation, the organization, the background, the financials of this company, and what we're really getting for it. I don't think
How is the money disbursed?
The money will be dispersed as of the majority of the funds that we are doing, and we've been doing for the last couple of years. The money is dispersed on a reimbursement basis. Once the organization does come in and go over the complete program with us, As they have expenditures, we'll be expending on a reimbursement basis. Part of the money is for intern jobs where the youth will learn government and other, other practices within the city. As that happens, the city is responsible for those, to making those, the internship, making the nominal internship payments to the students.
What is the
as well.
recruitment process?
How many students for the 50,000?
Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. What is the recruitment process?
It's gonna, you have to be a North Miami resident, and be within either the 11th or the 12th grade.
Do we monitor, how do we monitor the execution of, or the practice of how
Well,
this?
it wouldn't be the city's, the job to do the monitoring of the process. The individual, Dr. Jolabar, would be responsible for producing the documents to us, showing us, the people are residents of the city, and doing all the necessary backup and providing all the necessary reimbursement papers, moving forward. Let me say that, with this type of thing, it will, once it is approved, we will have the guidelines and everything established, to start it back up. And it will be, the information will be conveyed to the council on moving forward.
Do they choose the kids based on needs, or just first come, whoever?
That, I know they
Okay.
have a certain number of people applied. I believe the last time, I think about 200 students applied. And then they break down and they choose, I guess according to GPA and so forth, and what students' interests are, who we would determine would be the chosen ones to participate in the program.
Okay.
So I'm not getting any answers, like how many children are gonna be helped, and who is doing the program, who is the company that is getting this? Our budget doesn't usually encompass a lot of outside people other than the city. We have a few integral organizations, like our foundation and the chamber and PAL, but other than that, we're not usually budgeting organizations like this. We put this in other areas. So who is actually the payee of the 50,000?
Again, 50,000 would be reimbursement
To who?
for the vendors that are used. This
Who are the
program
vendors?
has,
Do we have vendors?
this program has several speakers. The major component of it, to have speakers that come and speak to the kids. The kids themselves are vendors as they're paid for their internships. The last program included a trip once they did their initial government, and went through working actually with the city doing government program, and then they did take a trip to Tallahassee, met with Rick Scott, and I believe it was Rick Scott at the time, and other people in Tallahassee. So that's the
6 years
Can you tell
ago,
me where is that? What department?
It's not in the department, sir. It's
It's
on your
non-
presentation
non-departmental.
because It was,
Non-departmental general
they were
funds.
supplemental, they were
On the
Look on page
supplemental.
supplemental
386.
We don't, but,
386.
yeah,
I-
just for the record, Councilman Bieneme and council, anything that's not part of your normal budget does not get put inside your budget book, because the budget book we know is about 500 pages.
Yeah.
And it gets lost in that stuff.
okay, I saw this line item like about 2 hours ago for the first time, where we've had a budget for several weeks. I have no idea where this money's going to, who's in charge of it, how many people. I mean, just to put 50,000 for line item to me is not the right way to do things.
Well, it is the right way, Mrs. Vice Mayor. It is the right way because the gentleman approached me a few months ago.
What gentleman?
That-
What company? What organization?
Would
Who
you
is-
please let me speak? I would never interrupt you while you are talking.
You did interrupt
Eh,
me because I was giving my
The
question.
the gentleman approached me about this program. Duke, when was it? About what, 2-3 months ago?
Yes, sir.
When I called you down and we had a meeting with him. As I understood it, it's a program that used to be funded by the CRA, as you just stated. And for the past couple of years, the program actually stopped. He actually even reminded me that some of these kids who were recruited from North Miami High, they actually used to come to my office, where they actually pair the kids with different professionals, lawyers, doctors, CPAs, business people. It's a way to expose those children to certain arena they would have not been exposed to had we not been had this program. So me, I'm a sucker for kids. Whenever people come to me and present a program that makes sense, a program that has to do with empowering kids, keeping them away from delinquents, keeping them away from problems. Other kids don't need this program because they have the means. Their parents do have the means. But some of the kids, a lot of the kids in our city, they do have the needs. Of course, some people couldn't care less. But I do know that these children, if we do not represent them, if we don't go to bat for them, nobody else will. So that's why I took the initiative, and I called Mr. Sori, who was the budget director at the time, and I asked him to please see if we can reinstate this program. And I think we would be faulting our kids. We would be really doing a disservice by taking this opportunity for them to be exposed to things that other rich kids are exposed to.
Thank you. I think it's probably a very good program. I would like more information before I just give $50,000. I have nothing except a 6-year-old study. Maybe that's a CDBG. That's where it belongs in our CDBG funds with our community-based organizations. I don't think getting it right now. Study program, I have no background, no amount. I won't say anything further. I won't beat a dead
Well,
horse.
make sure Dr. Julie Bois come and makes a and make a presentation at the next meeting. Okay?
So let me keep going, please. Few line items. City attorney. We're in the process of getting a, we're in the process of getting a new city attorney. I think our city attorney was hired at a very high rate and had some raises. I'd like to go back to a line item of 175. I'm recommending 175,000 as opposed to 226,000. I believe that's in line with the other municipal attorneys in Dade County. And I think if you put 226, that's what we're going to have to pay. I believe we can get a good attorney or firm for 175,000. I don't know what they've come in at, but I think we're starting way high. We don't need to do that. Our pay scale has been way too much in the past. That being said, Mr. Ghani has tendered his resignation and will not be here after most of the next year. I would also like to lower that management line item from 226 back down to 190,000. If you started at 225, that's what you're going to pay. I believe we can get a good city manager. I think before Mr. Ghani, we started way too high with a manager, paid way too much, and we've just followed. Now that we're looking at someone else in that position, I'd like to bring it back down to 190. We do not need to just give away 36,000 because that's what we've been doing. So that's my recommendation for those two high positions. There's about an $80,000 savings right there. We have outside counsel at about $88,000. I would like to just round that up to 100,000. I believe last year, if you can answer, our outside counsel was well over $500,000. I know that was extraordinary, but I'd like to make sure we have enough in there for outside counsel. And there is a couple line items. I think the travel for city attorneys between all the bars and the conventions, we've got a 2,000 line item for International Lawyers Conference, which I think could be eliminated. There are a lot of other conferences, bar, Florida bar, federal bar. We're spending thousands if you look at your line items. I think the International Lawyers Conference, we could just slash 2,000 there. It's minor, but if we go through line by line, we can save a lot of money. The question is, last year I believe we had a federal lobbyist for $30,000. We have a line item this year of $80,000 for a federal lobbyist. I don't know what we're looking at or what's on the horizon, but I'm not sure why we just stuck an extra $50,000 in our budget for a federal lobbyist. That is not our local lobbyist, who I believe is also $80,000, but the federal at $30,000. If we're not doing any federal lobbying, I think is adequate. I don't know what we'll be able to do with this evening, but last year we had 159 police officers, I believe. This year the budget still calls for 159 police officers. I've heard the residents, myself, we would like more police officers, more police presence. We've eliminated the red light cameras, and everybody said, well, we need police officers, let them monitor the lights. We do not have the police power to do the traffic patrol and monitor the red lights. So I would still like more police officers. Something I'm going to put on the table now in front of the council is I am looking for a municipal officer to walk the beat of our municipal complex. We've talked about security, we have we took away the security guard. I would like an officer who leaves the police station, walks through Mocha, walks in Mocha, comes over to City Hall, walks around, goes up and down the stairs, gives the residents a sense of security. We've just spent $250,000 from the CRA to put in a really terrific restaurant. 75 people, 75 seats outdoors. I think that would be a little bit of insurance to make sure that people will come and be safe and feel good about sitting outside at our new restaurant in the evening and not worry if a police presence is out there walking through. Also, he would continue the beat on up and down like 3 or 4 of our city blocks. Watch for litter, ticket for jaywalking, just the presence of that. They do not need a car. They could either do walking or bicycle or Segway. So I don't see it. I've asked for it. I don't know if we can put it in the CRA since it is in the CRA district, but I'm putting it on record that I do want an additional municipal officer to walk around our complex. I also don't see any additional code enforcement officers. The residents have all spoken on code. In our comprehensive plan, it says we must have 1 officer for every square mile. We do, I believe, have in the budget 9 code enforcement officers. We have 9 square miles. However, there are also additional requirements for the commercial and multifamily buildings. Additional officers required. So I believe we are short on code enforcement. That is the biggest cry I hear from everyone in the city. I really wish we could find some money for additional code officers. And also, as far as school and mentoring, we are spending $120,000 for our youth for peer tutoring. So I think we are, spending a lot of money on student monitoring. And that's that for now.
Mr. Mayor, can I go? I do have a couple items, and one of the particular items, I know Vice Mayor Keys, you mentioned, is code enforcement. I would like to see additional code compliance officer. But let's just go back a little bit, and I would like to just do it chapter by chapter. I did talk to, I think either Terry or Duke, regarding some of the directors. I know there's not an equality in pay when that comes, and I would like to see if everybody is up with the directors, however that we are mentioning. Is there a plan? I know you guys, they all getting raises, which is great, to at least equalize our city where we get the best out of the best.
Yes, Councilman. And in the past, that I would refer back to the Clarence Patterson days. We have a administrative regulation when individuals do move up through the rank. As you move up, you basically get a 5% increase to move up. A lot of directors are made, and they actually come through the ranks to position of directors. However, there are circumstances where you have individuals that we do get directors that come from the outside. The directors from the outside then are afforded the ability to negotiate their salaries. This puts a lot of them, when you do get a qualified person, this puts them at the high end of the salary range. As that does happen in the Clarence Patterson days, we had a serious inequality with the directors. You had new directors coming in, making in the 90,000s, high 90,000s, and the directors who came up through the rank making about 70,000 or 75,000. So something had to be done back then to level the playing field, or to to not even have animosity within the government and within staff. So changes were made to bring everybody up and make it equitable. And in-house, the manager and myself have been working and looking at the salaries of the individuals, of the directors, as it's been brought to our attention by staff. So we are looking to make those changes to provide equity, equality among the directors. So we are looking at that. Stuff.
Thank you, sir. The next question, I know we don't have a federal lobbyist, and I did have conversation as we were talking. We only do have, I guess, the one locally in Tallahassee. Can we allocate that 80,000 for the program that we are looking for, since we don't have a federal, or is there a plan in place to get a federal lobbyist, or what was the $30,000 for next year? Do I have 50 or do I have all 80?
If it's the will of the council, you guys make the decision. It was questions about a federal lobbyist. The lobbyist is there. If the body's saying now that they don't want a federal lobbyist, this is the time that we will make any adjustments to the budget. If the body votes to remove the money from there, we'll remove the money and place it to where we want it to go.
It could be reallocated.
Mr. Manager, your professional opinion, are we getting one? Do we need one? Or did we, I believe it was 30,000. Vice Mayor Keys said that was used last year.
Initially, why a federal lobbyist was put into the budget was a few years back when we were looking at the water, or the possibility of getting federal funds for allocation for the construction of the water plant.
Okay.
At the downturn in the economy, I think we pulled out that funding source. It was originally 50,000. I believe it was Ackerman Centerfit at the time.
Okay.
Last year it was pulled out. We only used the state lobbyists, and it was not. This year it's put back in for 30,000 at a funding level.
No, 80.
Sorry,
I saw it.
80,000 at a funding level.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's just a brief history on the federal lobbyists.
Two last questions. We did talk about the books in the library when we were going over the budget, and my understanding, because of the renovation, when would that be? Because I was okay with that as an answer, but because I'm assuming we wouldn't have the place if it's being under renovate. There's no place for the books, et cetera, and I did say very clear I would definitely make sure next year, moving forward, that we do have whatever allocation for books, and because I do understand that. So are we still at?
Last fiscal year, during this same budget hearing, the council did allocate $50,000 for library books. So they purchased $50,000 worth of books last year. This year, because that was a one-time, request by the council. This year, the $50,000 has not been budgeted for books.
Have not, right?
No,
but I did ask. I can't recall if it's you or Terry, and it was said because of the renovation, which I said that makes sense to me. Are we still? When is the renovation finished? Would it be this fiscal year?
Yes, we're looking at by the end of October to do an opening at the library.
Okay, so we need 50 for the library. Okay, I'm just writing down the numbers. Okay, police. Yes, sir. Right, I just have one more. Yeah, one more question. Well, two actually. Personnel. Okay, the police department. I know we talked about. I looked at the items, and I support fully having more police. They're doing a great job. However, I did have one question, and I'm regarding the cars. I know there's almost $1 million, 900 and something, allocated for cars. Talking to police. Well, trying to get some information. I'm trying to get a fair understanding. We need 352 for the agreement that we have, correct? Is it possible, and I'm going to propose this to the council, we could move at a pace where we do fund the whatever million that we need for the amount of cars that we need, and this will alleviate the additional 600 and something, because trying to figure out where the 600 and something was trying to get from, it's for additional cars on top of the 25. So if we, at a standpoint, maybe we could scale back and look back and perhaps moving and getting the cars a little bit slower than, forcing the budget. And I think that kind of would help out the additional officers, all these, because they only need 352 for the 25 cars that they need. So why should we trying to get them 40 if we are going through some problems, and we could certainly use that money elsewhere.
If it's the council's wish, staff looks at, just replacement values, and we go off a replacement model and try to replace cars. We haven't replaced, we did spend $1 million for 2013 when we had the Progress 2013 money. This fiscal year here, we're buying about 25 cars.
Yes.
Staff was recommended to actually go forward and do about 40 cars. And that's just staff's responsibility to make sure that we're looking at stuff like that.
Okay.
So that's what staff did. If this body wishes to amend that, we can amend it right now. I believe the breaks down to about $480,000 that would be available to spend if you so choose to amend purchasing the cars. And we can do it on a scale. I mean, if you want to take all 40 cars away, then that nets you about $480,000.
Okay.
If you want to take it down, we can
Okay.
take it down accordingly.
My understanding was we have 25 we have to get, which I understand, which is fine. But it's 352, correct? That line item is 900 and something. So how did we get it to 4 something?
The money, when you do purchase the cars, the money comes from all of the different funds to purchase the cars. And there's money coming from water and sewer, stormwater
I
also.
gotcha.
So if you want to make a change, I can make a change for the general fund, which is about 76% of the amount.
Of that, okay,
And that's
I
how I
see.
get the $480,000 amount.
Okay.
So we can do that if we're not buying cars or something that does associate in some sort with that utility or that enterprise. We can't use that money. We have to return
Absolutely.
that money to the enterprise.
I just feel like with us hearing from the library, from the senior program, we do want the cars. We are getting 25, and next year we could go ahead and get the additional 25, the year thereafter, until we get, instead of us rushing to get 100, because the libraries are important, the kids are important, so that right there would just clear up 400 and something right there, just a suggestion. My last point,
Let me address that for
yes,
you,
sir.
sir, before you move forward. If you did, well, now let Terry.
If you were to reduce it to 25 cars, the general fund, it pays for 76%. That would give a savings of $164,000 almost.
Okay, I'm lost. Okay.
160, if you did.
No, I know. So the number 9 something, and I know I'm not a budget person. If it's 900 something thousand for the cars,
Yes.
and I was told we need 25, which I think it's definitely.
The 900,000
Mhm.
include us buying 40 cars.
Okay, so
Now
for 25 cars, it's 352.
Yes, sir.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
So if 352 minus the 9 something,
Yes.
we should have had somewhere around 5 something left. But I understand Terry say 76% of the general will be 400 and something. So how did we get down to 1 something?
We're saying because you mentioned maybe we only buy 25 more cars.
No, not more. The 25 we're getting, we're supposed to get.
Okay.
Okay, the 25 that we supposed, that's what I'm just saying, because Vice Mayor Keys mentioned something that's very important. We need, I see the police aid, which the public service aid, which the budget balanced on. I would prefer to do that, to get additional officer. I'm not saying the cars are not important. I'm just saying we could at least just do it responsibly. I mean, we need books, we need everything. So maybe this year we'll get 25, next year we'll get an additional 25, because I understand each 25 is $1 million at the end of the day. Yes, something like that. So in the lifespan. So instead of us trying to go and budget a little bit irresponsible, we're saying we're getting 40, we're in the hook for 2 million versus 1 million, because this year, if we put in the 352, next year it'll be 700. So instead of that, I would think it'll be more safe if we just go with the 352. Maybe a miracle happens. We get some money somewhere, and we go ahead and purchase whatever that we need moving forward. But I think the police, the kids, and the books are much more important, and especially the rehab of home. I would love to see if we could, if we have a little extra, what we could do in the city. I'm just saying. Thank you.
Mr. Benjamin?
I don't want to say much tonight because in 2 weeks I'll come back and work the budget director about what I want to get done in the budget. It seems like in the police budget, no money was put aside for the PSA. No. How much money was allocated?
Not for any additional PSAs, no.
Okay, no addition. How many do we have now?
I believe we have 3 PSAs on staff now.
We have only 3 PSA. Okay. Do you have money in the budget for new police officer?
No additional funding for new police officers.
Hmm?
You have actually approved a grant application.
Yeah.
The one of the grants that we applied for 3 additional officers. Actually, it was scaled back from 5 officers to 3 officers. Hopefully, if the city is awarded the grant, you know, we could hire those 3 officers. The reason why we are scaling it back is at the end of a 5-year period, the city will actually have to pick up the tab for the officers, meaning that we will have to pay for the officers fully. So the federal government, we have applied, and hopefully we should be successful in hiring 3 officers with the upcoming fiscal year. And then every year after that, the allocation of their salaries would be budgeted.
But you don't know if the grant gonna be approved.
No, it's
Huh?
potentially on the grant approval, that's correct.
Okay. Based on that budget, there's no money for new police officers.
No additional police officers.
No money for PSA. Do we put money aside for code enforcement?
No additional code enforcement officers, sir.
Okay, guys. And everybody from the community is asking question about new code officers and new PSA, new police officers, and I think that's something you got to sit down. I don't want to sit and take money from the cars that we're gonna buy to hire new police officers. I think you're gonna have to sit down with the chief of police and come up with a different view in the budget. $1 million for cars, no new police officers, no new PSA, no code enforcement. When we are receiving call every day about breaking, and I think that you need to work on that and bring something on the next budget hearing about that. That's the only point that I have for tonight. Maybe in 2 weeks I'll come back.
But do you have a number in mind, Councilman?
No, I don't. You got to sit down with the police. I don't have that as
Okay.
responsible person. I don't want to say, and we understand that the police do need cars, and I see that on the street. And in 2 different occasions, it seems like it's a must. But 40 cars, no police officers, no new code enforcement, no money for PSA, and I understand the PSA doesn't cost a lot of money, about $25,000 a year, and that's something that you need to consider.
Just a point of clarification. I am advocating for new cars. I'm just advocating at the speed we are getting them.
Yeah.
And that would help us out if we act a little responsibly.
I think he
instead
heard you
of
loud
that.
and
That's what I
clear,
said.
Mr.
Thank you.
Councilman. Mr. Gallivan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank staff for taking the time to meet with me this morning, and I'll reference some of the things we talked about today. I've got a lot of questions, but I'm going to try to go through them thoroughly and concisely. But I want to quickly touch on a couple things my fellow council members brought up. The study program for $50,000, is that going to be awarded to a singular vendor in the end, and will there be a normal purchasing vendor process that's followed in awarding that? I heard a name of a particular individual mentioned earlier. Does that mean that anybody else who might provide this service should just not apply, or are we going through a particular process whenever we get around to awarding that $50,000?